Here's a breakdown of the story about the two women, and what's at stake, in their dispute over a multi-million-dollar fortune. Newspaper What Happened, the basics. The man at the center is James Dinsdale, a London-based accountant and property developer. When he died of cancer in October 2020, aged 55, he left behind an estate valued at about £1.8 million. He had married Victoria Fowle, a cosmetic dentist, in 2012, in Las Vegas. In 2017, he married Margaret Dinsdale, a beautician, also in Las Vegas, without divorcing Fowle. That second marriage made Margaret's wedding legally void under UK law. Since James died without a will, i.e., intestate, his estate would normally go to his legal spouse, Fowle, and his adult son, not to Margaret. However, Margaret claims she believed she had married James, in good faith, unaware that he was still married. She also says she was his primary caregiver while he had terminal cancer, depended on him financially, and gave up work to care for him. Her legal team argues she should be treated as a spouse, under the UK's 1975 Inheritance Act, given her dependence and caregiver role, and thus be entitled to a fair portion of the estate. A judge has already recognized her as a spouse for the purposes of her claim and granted her an interim payment of £50,000 to cover legal costs and living expenses while the case proceeds. Balance scale: why it matters, legal and emotional complexities. Under intestacy rules, only his legal wife and children inherited. That would exclude Margaret, because her marriage was technically void. But the inheritance laws provide room for claims by non-legal spouses or dependents under certain circumstances, e.g., if they were living with the deceased and were financially dependent. That's the route Margaret is trying to use under the Inheritance Act. Margaret's case raises difficult questions about good faith, marriages, caregiving, dependency, and what the law should recognize, especially in extraordinary circumstances like this. Busts in silhouette: who's involved? Victoria Fowle, the first, legally valid wife. As things stand under intestacy law, she's the rightful heir with James's son. Margaret Dinsdale, the second, wife, whose 2017 wedding was void. She disputes the situation and is fighting for her share. James's adult son, he is also in line to inherit under the intestacy rules. Calendar: what's next? The legal battle. The case is before a court, High Court in the UK, which will decide whether Margaret is entitled to a portion of the estate under the Inheritance Act. The court will likely examine factors such as whether Margaret genuinely didn't know about the earlier marriage, whether she was financially dependent, her role as carer, and what constitutes reasonable provision. There are also claims that part of the estate has already been spent, including two properties worth £600,000 supposedly sold by Fowle. Margaret's lawyers are seeking a freezing order to preserve what remains. If you like, I can check for precedents in UK law. Are there similar cases where a second partner won against a legal spouse under intestacy plus dependency claims?